It's Wednesday, Klaus here. It's time for another basic Davinci Resolve tutorial.
It's Wednesday and time for yet another basic Davinci Resolve tutorial. So if you saw my tutorial from Monday, I did a how to import a 3D model into Davinci Resolve using Fusion, but I thought maybe you don't want to work with 3D models and stuff like that. So I made a different tutorial or another way of doing it. And in fact, you can do this in the Edit tab and in the Color tab, so we'll run into that. So let's just get started. What I have right here is a PNG file of a TIE fighter, and I have a clip down here, which is just a drone footage, and these two combined, we can do something. So let's just jump into this. First up, we're going to select our PNG file, and I want it to begin at the beginning and all of that, but first I want to size this down quite a bit. If you toggle here, you are going to have, you can see what you're doing here. So I'm just going to zoom this quite a bit down, and I'm using the scroll wheel here to zoom in. And now we're just going to put in the TIE fighter around here, I think would be good. And I'm going to go into the inspector, and in the transform, I'm going to add in a keyframe at zoom and position and rotation, something like that. And then we're just going to go a little forward in time here. And I'm just going to drag this to the position I wanted. I also want this to be bigger, something like that. And at this time, I want it to do a little bit of a rotation. If you want to change the anchor point, you can do that right here as well. But for this, I'm not going to. Okay, so here we have a TIE fighter flying in our shot, done in the Edit tab. Next thing, I'm going to push the option Alt and drag. And then I'm going to color the bottom clip in a different color by right-clicking and getting the menu pop up here. I'm going to make that orange, and then I want to go into the Color tab. So with the orange one selected, I'm just going to zoom in a bit, and then I'm going to make this, I want to make this look like a shadow or something like that. So I'm going to take the lift here in the color and turn that all the way down here. And if you are wondering why nothing is happening, I'll show you that in one sec, because I have a duplicate of the same thing, so that's why. I'll go to the gain and I'll make that quite dark as well. I have to turn off the top layer, and I do that by selecting it and pushing D. So now you see we have this black TIE fighter, and I'm just going to push D again to select the other one. And then I'll go back to the Color tab. I'll go to the second TIE fighter. And I want to try to match this a little bit better, because it does look a little, and I'll do that by just dragging down the lift, playing around with the gain, also dragging that down a bit. And again here in the gain, something like that. Might want to do something with the temperatures as well. So the basic idea here is to match this shot up with the other one. And I think I can do that if I go into the tint here as well. And we can also play around with the contrast a little bit. So the difference about making an effect like this in the edit page is that I don't have any lights to play with, which I would have had if I did it the way I did it in the tutorial I did on Monday. I could play around with the 3D scene and make the lights, but I can't do this because this is just a flat 2D image. Anyway, if we just toggle up here, we can take off the grade we did, and you'll see that it's actually better integrated into the scene. So I'll go back to the edit page here, and I'm going to take my second layer here. And in this case, I am going to go into the position, and I'm just going to move this down because I want to have a little bit of a shadow down here. And I'm just going to run through the clip pretty fast and make sure that it's out of the frame here. So here we have a super fast flying TIE fighter effect inside of Davinci Resolve, made entirely in the edit page. Of course, if you are a little more daunting and want to do the same thing in Fusion, you can. So first off, to do that, I'll go to the effects library. I'll go into effects and I'm just going to drag down a Fusion composition and we'll pop into Fusion. So here in Fusion, I only have my media out. First off, I want to go in here and this is a background. I'm going to drag that background in and I'm going to connect my background to the media out. So for the sake of the tutorial, let's just, so we might as well just drag down the same media and I'm just going to put that as my input instead of a background. Okay, and then we have our PNG file here and I'm going to take my PNG. If you get in a thing which is not a PNG file, you can actually do the same thing. It doesn't have to be a PNG, just make my life a little bit easier. But you can mask out the object and do it that way. So anyway, I'm going to take media 2 here, which is my TIE fighter. I'm going to drag that right in here and that will make a merge. And now we've merged in the thing here in Fusion. And if I go down to, actually, I'll just push Control Spacebar and I'll write transform. So I'll add in a transform node. Not necessarily here, but I want to add in a transform node in between the merge here and the media 2N, okay? So let's go to the beginning of our thing. And with the transform selected, I'm going to zoom down my TIE fighter and then I'm going to reposition it. Same spot here, let's say here. I'm going to put in a keyframe. I'm also going to maybe play around with the angle a little bit. Something like that. I'm going to put in a keyframe. Let's say we're going to go 35 frames forward. And then I'm simply going to add in a keyframe as well in the center because that is the movement as well. So I'll go back to frame 35 and then I'm going to scale up the size. I'm going to play around with the rotating angle like it does something like that. And then I'm just going to move it out of the screen like that. Okay, that little thing here. So one thing we can add, and which we couldn't add in the other one, is actually we can add in motion blur, and we'll add motion blur in by selecting our merge, and we'll go into our settings, and then we have here motion blur, and then you can play around with the different settings, but per default, that is, I'll keep those. So now we're actually going to get some motion blur into our shot as well. Which is also going to sell the effect a little bit better. So I also want to add in a color corrector. I'm going to add in the color corrector, which is right here before the transform. And you know, I'll try to make this little TIE fighter fit in a little bit better. So we can try to play around with the gain and something like that. Not doing anything crazy. So here we have a TIE fighter in our shot. Okay, so that was 2 other methods of getting a TIE fighter inside of Davinci Resolve 17 without having to find a 3D model and adding that in. Okay, anyway, I do hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, share it with your friends if you think it would help them out, and if you want to be notified every time there's a new video on this channel, please hit that bell icon down in the corner. Until next time, keep filming, keep learning, and keep sharing.